Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today has been making it pop since 2014 thanks to a gift her employer gave her. Now she's your favorite snack dealer. Please welcome the owner of Major's Project Pop, an organic vegan popcorn brand, Chauniqua Major-Louis. What's going on, Major? What's going on?
I love that introduction. I've been making it pop. I like that. I might see that. I'm doing so well. How are you?
I'm doing well. So go-to question always. Thank you so much for having lunch with me. What's your go-to like lunch sandwich?
Ooh, lunch sandwich. So if I'm at home, I typically will make, I love anything with avocado. So it's not really a sandwich, but I'm always a sucker for like an avocado toast. But one of my favorite sandwiches outside of my home is actually at Cafe Linger.
Okay.
I eat plant-based. So they do this like chickpea tuna sandwich. It's so good. And I add like a lot of hot sauce to it. It's very like tangy and savory and spicy. So I love that. That's probably like my go-to sandwich. Prior to that, it would have been at Dandelion, but you know, rest in peace to them.
Rest in peace to them.
I know, but Cafe Linger, they make a really good sandwich that when they do have it, I try to go and get it.
Nice. That's awesome. I love that. I love hearing other people. I changed my question before to be like go to like sandwich into like sandwich / lunch. Cause I felt some people were like, well, do I have to give you a sandwich? I'm like, no, you don't have to give me a sandwich. It's okay. I'm like, just cause I love sandwiches, you could like other things. So
I know,
so I totally get
it.
A
variety of things, but I have to be like in a sandwich mood.
Yeah.
And every time I have it, it's never missed there. Like it's always really good. So
that's always good to know. I'll definitely, now I want to check it out. Now I want to check out what this chickpea tuna style is. I definitely want to know about that. So I briefly mentioned in the intro, tell folks a little bit about how you started Major's Project Pop.
Yeah. So there's a really long story. There's a long story. And then there's like the palatable story. I'll give us the palatable story today.
Yeah. Lunch break style.
Oh, lunch break style. Okay. So here's the thing. I've worked in PR for about 12 years now. And actually I still work in PR and own an agency. So I do that, I split my time between popcorn and PR. But back when I first started my career, I started to work for a food PR agency. So I fell in love with food, the people that make it, the people that grow it, how it's distributed, people that eat it, and everything in between. So my employer at that time gifted me with a popcorn machine. And it was like just like one of the ones you plug in, like an air popper. And I got really creative at the office every day by making popcorn as a snack for the staff. So I like ran that office. So I always wanted to do things to like boost the morale and get everybody excited. But it was really fun way. It was a fun way for me to utilize this gift that I got. So I would come up with everything from like savory to sweet and in between. And that was for the holiday season. That next February, we went down to South Beach Food and Wine Festival because we had a ton of clients in the festival. And there was a limbo contest and your girl won. So with that winning, I got a Williams-Sonoma gift card. So I decided to up my popcorn game and I got a whirly popper and I just started to experiment and I just started to get these ideas of what this popcorn business could be in the future. And what I dreamt up at that time is totally different than what I'm doing today. I don't want to share it because I might actually do it one day.
Okay.
But maybe it might have been maybe a year or so later, I heard about this foodpreneur series that they were having at Easton Market. And I was like, this sounds like a really cool idea. And a friend of mine at that time, we thought we were both going to start a juicery. So we were like, okay, let's start a juice bar. We found out that like it's really expensive to run a juice bar and very hard with all the fresh ingredients. And then we thought we want to do a soap business. And then in between the first class and the second class, she dropped out and I was there by myself figuring out, well, what do I want to do? And I thought, well, why not explore this popcorn idea that I've had in the back of my mind for the last year or so? And I pursued it. And on the third part, like there's 3 parts to their foodpreneur series. The third part allowed me to actually pop up and showcase whatever it is that you make. So some people were doing barbecue and sauces and various things. And I had popcorn, of course. And I came out with, I think I did 2 different flavors at that time, or maybe it was 3. I had back in the day what was called the ebony and ivory. So that was just like a classic sea salt and cracked black pepper. I think I just had a sea salt, and then I had what used to be called the 9 to 5, which is now our OG flavor, which is like our take on kettle corn.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of how I got started. It was really out of this innate desire in me to be an entrepreneur. I grew up watching my mom be a hairstylist my entire life. And back when I was a kid, we didn't call our parents entrepreneurs. They just owned a business or went to work, right?
Yeah.
So watching her and then growing into my career, I just had this itch to do more than what I was doing. I don't know why. I just maybe wanted to make my life even more stressful, but I just had this itch. So I did everything from like almost joining the military, like the rest of my family, to applying to grad school. I just had all these ideas of things that I wanted to do, but ultimately, popcorn found its place in my world. And I just decided to create a snack that I felt good about feeding my nieces. So it's always been really clean ingredients, no preservatives, all organic, all vegan. And yeah, it's just been a big part of my life now for the past, handful of years now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it's funny because in my research, things I always like to tell people like how I met you, how I found you,
yeah,
and things like that.
Did
So what's interesting is this, and you're going to go, oh man, I didn't even realize it. So I knew obviously that you ran and you did like, and I was doing my research and stuff. And I know that you currently run, like when you mentioned you have your own PR firm, whatever's good. But we actually met because of that PR job that gave you the popcorn. I believe it was the company that gave you the popcorn. We actually met because I do events like sandwich eat up events.
Yeah.
And I remember that you actually were my point of contact for an event that I was doing for one of your clients many moons ago. I did an event and you were my point of contact. And it was funny because I've always known you either because of doing the your popcorn doing pop-ups and seeing you and Fuego. But it's funny because that's when it hit me. I was researching and all of a sudden it like sparked and I go, holy crap. I go, she and I used to email because of she would be like my point of contact for an event.
Do you remember which one?
It was for the Coop.
Oh, for the Coop.
I did a sandwich eat up event at the Coop and you were my PR, the PR person for them. Yep. And you were awesome. I was like, man, and it was funny because I told my wife, and my wife's like, well, how did that event go? I was like, man, that was like, I felt like a rock star at that event. She's like,
I want everybody to feel when it comes to
that is exactly how I did feel. It was truly amazing how I felt. Like it was just really great. So yeah, I thought it was amazing to see. Like I totally forgot about that part because I've always now, when I see you and I think of you, I just think of, popcorn. So it was kind of funny when I was like thinking back, I was like, oh, I'm like, that's, it's so interesting. So what I find amazing on what you've been able to do and what you've accomplished, is the fact that you like, you pop and distribute from your house, right?
So I pop and distribute from a spot in Sanford. Okay. So I have a kitchen that I work out of. Yep. But it's still just me doing it.
Yeah, it's just you doing it. Yeah. And I've been amazed to see and obviously like that's kind of where some of the things I wanted to kind of pick your brain on because you've really had some amazing opportunities come up from your delicious popcorn, which I love seeing small businesses. I love seeing people who are just like hardworking and just like it just starts clicking. Like I know you've been featured, in Forbes, Esquire. You've worked with Netflix, HBO, done stuff with the Emmy Awards, BET. Like tell me about how some of those things came about and like and just kind of that experience and maybe because obviously that was you've been doing this for a while now, so this isn't one of those things where it just kind of happened. You've been building up, so I was just kind of curious a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy how it all happened. The connection that I've had with this business is like I'm loving it and I'm doing it whether we're really busy or it's really slow, right? So for the first few years, I had a couple of like really cool opportunities, but nothing really on the grand scale of what happened in 2020. So I always like to say that like my business, and it gave me a lot of grief and excitement at the same time. Yeah. So amid all the social injustice and unrest that happened in 2020, before that, but really that bubbled up in 2020, it put Major's Project Pop in the spotlight. And we were one of the very few businesses that got swept up in this media frenzy in the Buy Black movement. And I remember, again, at that time I was working for an agency and I was just doing my regular job, working from home, working on client things. And I got an email from a vegan publication and they asked, hey, we would love to feature you in a story. And I was like, okay, great. I never really heard of the outlet, to be honest, because although I am plant-based, I'm not always like reading all the news and what's happening in all the different outlets, So I was like, sure, of course you can write about us. That's no big deal. I appreciate it. Well, that story went viral. I mean, when I say viral, I mean viral. So the story hits. I'm literally sitting there. I think I was going to get a glass of water. And all I heard was like ding, 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 ding. And those were orders coming in from that very story. I think I had like 1,000 orders in one day. It was like the most insane thing that I've ever experienced in my life. I was not ready. Yeah. I had very little infrastructure, established to be able to handle orders of that type, because prior to then I was a very local focused brand, which I still am, but my audience didn't really extend past really Orlando. So now all of a sudden I'm getting orders from people in Alaska and California. And I'm like, what is happening here? So I had to quickly scale, which meant I had to rethink the way that I package and ship and how I ship. Back then I was still writing labels to ship out. So I didn't have a label maker or anything. So I think that first week when all those orders came in, I wrote out 500 labels to ship. It was the wildest thing. I don't know how I did it back then with my day job that I have. But the business just really got, again, swept up in this Buy Black movement. And it was a very interesting time for me as a Black woman, because I was dealing with the grief of what was happening in our world, especially with people that look like myself, but then also experiencing this massive success with my business. Yeah. So it was a very emotional time for me, but I think I did the best I could to just try to keep my head as level as possible while utilizing the coverage that I had and the opportunities to really advocate for Black people, for brown people, for people who experience injustice in the world, and utilizing food as a tool to do that. So, I mean, when I started getting emails from Netflix and Lionsgate and all these different production houses and just people just somehow just finding myself in stories, I would just Google something and then all of a sudden I'm in a story. I'm like, what? When did this happen? How did this happen? It wasn't an act that I had caused at all. I was really trying to just keep low key, because I knew once it got out of the bag, no pun intended, it was just going to be really hard to contain. But it has been the wildest 2 years of my entire life, trying to navigate the pandemic while scaling a business and dealing with the ebbs and flows, right? And one thing that I think is so unique to not just my experience, but the experience of a lot of people that look like me who are in business, from 2020 through 2021, to support a Black business was a very cool thing to do. It was very in vogue, right? Everybody wanted to do it. All the brands wanted to support it and talk about it. But that has kind of died off a little bit. So it's very interesting to see how my business has some extreme highs and extreme lows depending on the season. So it requires me to have to manage my emotions and not take it as a reflection of the food that I produce or who I am as a person. It's just the trends that happen in the world. So it's just such an interesting time, but I'm so grateful. And the things that I've been able to do and the opportunities that have been afforded to me through this business, I still don't think I fully have comprehended what has happened over the past 24 months and just how life-changing it has become. And there's still new things that are coming up and things that I'm being invited to that I'm just it's just sometimes I don't feel it's that imposter syndrome. You guys want to pick me, my business? Okay, all right, let's do it. But it's been wild and beautiful at the same time.
No, that's really impressive to be able to go that route. I think it's also what's also impressive is the fact that how you were able to figure out and adapt so quickly to kind of scale up, because that's always a tough one when you're doing it. Like I chuckled because I too used to hand write and do my notes, and then once I got that thermal printer, I was like,
Ooh,
what was I doing? What was I doing all this
I
time?
know.
Yeah.
I always tell people, literally, like when people ask, like, what do you need to start a new business? If you're doing e-commerce, just get like some sort of thermal printer.
Yep.
Even if you don't need it right now, find one on like Facebook Marketplace, eBay, whatever. If you can't afford like a full price one, just get one, because even writing one label today is not even worth it. Like you just need that thing. It's zoomy fast, right? It
Yep.
gets you everything you need in a quick, fast, in a hurry.
Heck
So
yeah. Heck yeah.
one of the
What
best
at the
ever.
time, and I was kind of curious because you brought up the topic about the ebbs and flows, and obviously every
Yeah.
business has ebb and flow. For in the world of popcorn, what is like, obviously I'm thinking like certain holidays have to be like your must,
Really busy.
kind of like where it gets, it's obviously popping,
Yeah.
and it kind of gets crazy. Like where like the flows is, obviously I know like Christmas time, obviously great, but
Yes.
where are some other times that you've noticed that like, hey, these are some of my high points out of curiosity?
Absolutely. So every business is different.
Yep.
Um, and every popcorn business is different. And then it's even more so different for me, because I think some of the reasons why people buy from Majors Project Pop are different. So to go over the months, January typically gets busy because people are starting to think about Black History Month in February.
Yep.
And so when most people are normally like slow after the holiday season, things start to really pick up for me. And then I get a ton of last minute orders on like February 5th asking, can they have it like by the 8th? So February is like a crazy month for us. So I just slow down in March. It slows down through March, April. It's really slow, probably from February to about Mother's Day. I take that back. February is also busy because of Valentine's
Yep.
Day. So everybody wants our popcorn. They want our 24 karat gold popcorn. That's really popular as like a sweet gift to give someone. So February is insane. Slows down until about Mother's Day. Father's Day, not so much. And then we get into June for Juneteenth. It picks back up again. It's really, really busy for us. So around Juneteenth is when I get a lot of bigger corporations, which is
Yeah.
where a lot of like, thankfully, a lot of the funds that come into the business come from. They're ordering popcorn for everybody on staff, or sending it out to influencers or partners, or having a big block party and need popcorn. So May/June is really busy. And then now we're in the summer, it gets really slow. Like it's not a whole lot happening, but this is also where I get to have a little bit more fun, and I can do more pop-ups around town.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to split my time between like really big orders and local commitments. So I get to strategize, plan for the fall and the winter, and then typically around the fall, it picks back up again. And then the holiday season, like I have no idea what could happen in the holiday season. So I don't vacation. I vacation at the very end of the year, like once holiday orders are over, and then we just start all over again.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, that's great to know. I mean, obviously it's always difficult when you have a small business and figuring out the ebbs and flows of when it is and things like that. And then once you kind of have those expectations, it makes it a heck of a lot easier. So I wanted you to tell me a little bit about your pop mission, because I absolutely love it.
Yes.
And obviously I've heard the story about like how it kind of came up, like, when you thought of the pop word, people over, I kind of love it. It's like people
Yeah.
over profits,
Yep.
purpose over profits. And then, kind of like being able to kind of, you lose a little so others can win, the whole
Yeah.
don't cut corners, the quality ingredients you provide. I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to get a little bit more of that, and I kind of love the story of how it came about for you, and
Yeah.
how you came up with it. So I figure you can maybe share it with us.
Absolutely. I love that. So when I first created Majors Project Pop, it was called Eat Project Pop, which is still like our handle on all social channels. And at that time, everything was a project, like a branding thing. Like there was like back in that time, everybody was branding something, project something. So I was like, well, why not just name it Project Pop? Like I had no rhyme or reason for why that was the name. And as the years progressed, I just fell more and more out of love with the name. Like I just had zero connection to it. I'm like, what is this? Like this doesn't, as I began to learn more about myself as an individual, what I stood for as like a person, I'm like, this isn't really making a lot of sense. And I don't really feel connected to it. So I've had this long-term vision of slightly changing the name because I wanted Major to be a part of it because everybody knows me by Major. So it's like, I should probably have my name somewhere in the company, especially because I have chosen to let people know that I am the owner. And one day I had finished popping and it was around like 2:00 in the morning. And I had to get up and I always tell people it's TMI, but in the middle of the night, you got to get up and go to the bathroom. I got up and I was going to the bathroom and it was like this, like, it was like God had just like dropped this like little on my head and it was like pop. I was like, people over profit. And I was like, wow, okay, I like that. And then like purpose over profit came to my mind. And then I texted a couple of friends late at night and then I slept on. And the next morning, I just found this like newfound love and appreciation for POP and the acronym that what it represented to the brand and just how over the years, the actions that I've strategically taken as a business owner, whether it's things I don't do or things that I do, represent the overall concept of people and purpose over profit. So people always ask, like, what does that mean? Well, for me, it means a couple of things. It means that one, I give back to causes that I'm extremely passionate about and that I feel move humanity in a positive direction. So I know that there are a lot of causes that support, the ending or the alleviation of hunger in certain communities. I'm really passionate about that. I love entrepreneurship as a whole. So I'm always looking to support in those communities, especially Black and Brown areas. And one of the bigger areas that I always love to talk about is the ingredients that we use. Yeah. So, there's no shade to anybody who like runs a popcorn company and they don't maybe use like the best ingredients. I feel like everybody has their own style, but from the beginning, I've always used very, very high quality ingredients and they cost me a lot of money. Nothing that I use is cheap. I sometimes I wish that it were because it would make life a little bit easier, but we use really high quality ingredients. And because of that, one, it just leads to a higher cost product, which I understand that just naturally comes with the game. But I could leave the cost the same to the consumer, buy a less expensive item, make something that tastes really good and just make more money. Yeah. But for me, it's like, why would I do that? If the premise of why I created this company was to create a snack that I felt good about feeding my nieces, I only want to give them the best. Yeah. So if I'm not going to eat it, I'm not going to give it to them. Why would I give it to someone else to feed their kid? Or why would I give it to you to eat? I know that one, we use, organic unrefined sugar. That's in no way like a health food, but in the big scheme of life, there are a lot of things that we eat that even if they're sweet, it's still better for you than maybe other things that we eat, right? If we're just totally going off the edge and like, let's just go for it and eat however we want to eat. So with the business, it's really important for me that I use quality ingredients, things that actually can be good for you, but also it's just a treat. Like I feel like everybody deserves something good to eat that makes their stomach smile and gets them all excited about it. But the ingredients I use, they cost me a lot and I do it intentionally because I feel like I don't mind to lose out a bit so that other people can benefit. Yeah. Like it is not my intention or desire to make millions or hundreds of thousands off possibly leading to the demise of someone's health. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, if I can be a little bit more intentional in the choosing and selection of ingredients so that we're all a little bit better for it, but still get to enjoy something good, why not? So that's always been my intention. And I love that as a business owner because what it allows me to do is know what I can easily say yes to and what I can definitely say no to. So I get a lot of people that are like, hey, can you do this flavor and that flavor? Or, I'm talking about really big companies. They're like, we're looking for like a customized blue and red popcorn and we want to do it. And I'm like, yeah, we don't do like, That's not what we do.
Exactly.
I can totally recommend you to somebody that does that, and there's no shade to them. I think there's a place for everybody in the market. So if that's what you need, I got you. I can send you to someone. But as for me, I'm not going to do that, and here are all the reasons why. And people typically respect it, and they're like, oh my God, I love that. We definitely want to support you. So I've always found, especially because of my marketing background, sometimes it is better to like really pick a stance in certain areas of your business and like drive home, because when people know that you're passionate about your convictions and why you do what you do, it gives them like this like tangible area to like fall in love with that part of your business and really support you because you're passionate about it. So for me, I'm really passionate about food, about the eating experience, and just about the overall health of people. And I try to do that however I can with this business, just by being like really intentional.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Would you say that because of that and those convictions and that passion, those are some of like some of your recipes for success?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I always tell like either my clients and myself to think about like what really matters most to you. When people think about your brand or whatever company, if you own a restaurant, whatever, like what do you want people to think about when you're not in the room? So when it was, so I know you recently interviewed Sarah from Good Crowd.
Yeah.
I know Sarah. I love her. She's my pickup spot for people who want to order popcorn locally.
Yep.
But when I think about a Good Crowd, I think about community. I don't think about like the first thing that comes to my mind isn't, oh my God, they have the coolest things. It's like it's a very community oriented place and they sell really good products. So I have these feel good things about them already. I've seen Sarah like support local entrepreneurs who are just starting and need a place to pop up. She supports me. So I get those feelings about her business. And I want people to have a similar idea about my popcorn. And for them, it might just be, they use really good ingredients that I can taste. Like I know it's always going to be good. And I see the work that they do on Instagram or in the community or whatever. It's like, so just finding out what matters most to you and sticking to it and realizing it might not be what's most important to other people, but I think people can feel a lot of times what your intentions are and what you stand for, even when you're not verbalizing it to people. So yeah, convictions are key because there's so many trends and so many things that we could be doing. And it works for some businesses, right? Like fast fashion and things like that, right? Yeah. You can hop on the trends and that's how you make your money. But if you're not a fast fashion business, or if you are more of a like local oriented business, you can't always keep up with everybody's doing, because then nobody really knows what you stand for or what you do well. You just kind of do what everybody else does. So yeah,
I think you hit some definitely some great points, and I totally agree. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, I think to me, those are the things when you're hitting your branding and you're hitting your mark, when, certain things that people think about you. So I think I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to pick your brain because obviously we're both small businesses, but you also work on the PR side. Yeah. Do you have any like tips or suggestions you would give someone in helping them get their name out? Maybe, get a little bit more local or national public, any PR tips that you can maybe give to someone?
Absolutely. So one of the first things I always tell people is to figure out why. Why do you want publicity? Is it going to be fruitful for your business? Because I'll tell you, as like a publicist, I am very, very selective about where I pitch my clients and what I pitch them for, because not all publicity is good publicity. And if you have certain goals in mind, what I recommend for you might be very different than for some other business. So I'll give you an example. I think I got featured in like this like really big country living story maybe a year or so ago. And I think it might have been another like really big outlet, like, I don't know, Esquire or something. And I got very few sales from those, just two examples of those two big hits. But then I got featured on like a smaller, some sort of website I'd never heard about. And then all of a sudden I got this call from Wells Fargo wanting to do this really big order for Juneteenth. And I'm like, well, where did you hear about us? He's like, I found you on this website. And he named it. And I had no idea what it was. But I say all that to say, it's more important to know why you want to do something, because that will determine where you want to show up. You don't want to just be on any publication or any website or on any news channel, you want to be on the right ones that will lead to greater brand awareness for your audience, and that could potentially lead to sales. So kind of figuring out why you want to do this. For some people, it's just like vanity purposes. And it's like, I mean, we can do it, but it's not really going to be fruitful. So figuring out why. The second thing is I always tell people to assess your online presence. So does your website work? Like when I go there, is it live? Are all the links accurate? Do you have SEO? Do you have compelling photography and copy that will at least get somebody scrolling or keep them there? All of that matters so much these days, more than any time in the past, right? Because you can have customers across the world and they can get to you like you had a storefront just via your website. So making sure your social presence is just in a decent place. You might not have the best. We can always do better, but just making sure that you've got this solid foundation that is the most representative of what your business sells and the quality that you sell. Because I can tell you, so many times I've like come into contact with businesses and I look at their packaging and I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. And then when I go to their website, I realize like these things don't match.
Yeah.
So if you have a product, I'm not saying you've got to invest like $10,000 or anything crazy into your website. Like I built my own website. It's not the best, but I think it works. I mean, people go there and I don't have any issues with it. So if you can create something that at least is complementary to what you sell, whether that's a store, a restaurant, if you're a designer or you're a photographer, your digital presence just needs to be on point, to the point where people take you seriously and feel like they don't mind investing in you because you have something quality to share or sell to them. The last thing I'll share is I always recommend that people know a little bit about the services that they hire people to do for their business. So if you're hiring a publicist and you have no idea what PR is, do a little research, because PR is very different depending on which industry you're in and why you're hiring someone. Like there are different types of publicists that do different types of things. So don't hire a food PR publicist to roll out
earrings.
Yeah. Like unless they are a lifestyle publicist, then they probably could do that. Like if they're really good in like the e-commerce space, great. But there are publicists like I have experience in like crisis PR. If you have a restaurant, right, and you have something just hit the fan and it's going down, your normal food culinary publicist who's really just good at like getting you in the news and connecting with influencers might not be the best person to help you go through this like turmoil so that your business doesn't come out in smoke at the end, right? So it's just knowing a little bit more about what you need and doing a little bit of the PR yourself. I'm always recommending that people hire out whenever they can. But if you're really small and you don't have the budget, one, you can hire someone like me just for like, I have like these day rates that I have for people where I can just talk to them and help them out through like a variety of things. Or just do the work yourself. If you have an ice cream shop and you're like, okay, National Ice Cream Day is coming up, we should do something really cool. Or we're having this really big event and rolling out these new flavors. Go on social media, find some of the influencers you like and send them a DM and let them know. You can also go to orlandosentinel.com or Orlando Weekly or whatever it is, in the city and reach out to these people that write these stories and just let them know. Will they run it? You never know. But if you put together a nice email and give them a heads up, send them some photography or flyer, you never know. You could be in the paper or they might say, this is amazing. I needed this. I'm doing a roundup about ice cream shops in town. We would love to stop by your shop. And then bada bing, bada boom, now you're in the news and things can just kind of take off from there. But if you hire people and you don't know anything about what they're supposed to do, one, you can get easily taken advantage of and be out of thousands of dollars and then not believe in PR marketing at all because you think that everybody is like shiesty. And then two, it just gives you a better footing so that you know what you're looking for, right? It's like, well, I was doing a little research and I think I might need this or that. And then you can pass it off to a professional who can assess what you share with them and they can say, oh yeah, you're on track. This is what we need. Let's go for it. Or you really don't need that. These are my recommendations. What are your thoughts? So it can be more collaborative versus you just kind of being in the dark and letting someone lead you into a place where maybe that's really not what your business needed in general.
No,
So those would be my tips.
I love it. I love it. What lessons do you think you've learned along like these past 8 years running, your Project Pop?
Mm. Get a thermal printer really fast.
Yep.
I'm so passionate about that. It's crazy.
By the way, do you have I'm assuming since if you have it like me, you don't have a wireless one, right? You have like the one you have to plug into your
I
laptop
do
or
have the
computer.
plug-in one.
So do
I heard
I. And like now I want the wireless, but now and now I'm like,
the
I'm like,
wireless one. I just heard sometimes it can be a little finicky.
yeah.
And when I need my printer, I need my printer. So I
Yeah.
always need to be like on point. It is a little bit of like, especially I have a Mac, so it's like a lot of like rigging with like adapters and stuff to get it in. But I mean, I would just recommend get one if you run a business, really of any type and ship anything.
Yeah.
It's literally the best investment. Ask your family to help you buy one or put it on your list for your birthday or Christmas, or whatever. Other lessons that I've learned. You are one of the most valuable assets to your business. So you have to invest in yourself. And sometimes that means saying no and creating boundaries and resting, because I'm naturally a goer. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. So I can like pew through life, through tasks. I mean, I'm moving and shaking. But throughout the pandemic and into today, I've learned that like my rest is so essential. Like I cannot be as outgoing, as connected. I can't make the best popcorn if I'm exhausted. And sometimes that means passing up on money, right? Like some people have come to me and I've had to make really hard calls. Like if it's February and your company is now asking me for popcorn, you need it. I've had literally people say, can we get it tomorrow? And they want a lot of popcorn and it's a lot of money. And I'll tell them, I can't do that. But if you want it in a week, I can do that for you.
Yeah.
So creating like this balance with internally and externally, I think will serve a lot of business owners well if they catch on to that early, because it took me a while and the business really grew after a while. So you said 8 years. I really feel like truly I've only been doing this for maybe like 4 years. That's how it feels to me, because it really took off like much later. And then the other thing I would say that I've learned is it's so important to lean into why you do what you do and to have those convictions and like foundational principles of the work that you do. Like it's really like we normally hear about them with like bigger corporations, like your mission statement, your purpose, why you do like brand guardrails, like all of that sounds like, oh, that's like really business, like corporation things. No, that can apply to any business. So I even think about that as like an entrepreneur who owns a business where it's just me, right? I'm a solo practitioner. I still have to have those things for myself as a business, because I need some guardrails that will help direct me through life and the clients that I take, who I partner with, why I do what I do. If you don't have those things, you could sometimes find yourself trying to be everything for everybody and lack integrity. And then you can end up 5 years down the line wondering like, why am I even doing this? Like, does this matter? But if you have those guardrails and you like are able to work with intention, it really helps you wake up and have a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, I think those are like some of the bigger takeaways that I've learned over the years that I think have served me well. And I always try to share them with people when they ask questions like that.
No, that's great. That's great. So I absolutely love your husband, Walter Fuego, who also, by the way, is a digital creator, serial entrepreneur, founder of Orlando Podcast Studios and Studio 17 Create and all that goodness. I know it's awesome. But he's like one of the things that I love, and I kind of wanted to bring up was he's like a huge advocate on taking the time to enjoy the process. So I'm kind of curious on like how important it's been to have someone like him in your life and in your business journey.
Yeah. So my husband has been so important to the work that I do, because it can be very lonely and dark sometimes when I'm really tired or I'm just trying to figure out like, how am I going to get this order out? Or how do I set up this freaking tent again at this event? Like, there's just like these tangible things and there's these emotional things.
Mm-hmm.
And having someone like him has been so important because he not only provides like hands when I need it, but also perspective. So during the pandemic, I was working a full-time job. I like led a division at a PR agency in town. And I was at this big crossroads of like, hey, I feel like I'm supposed to leave my job and really pursue PR on my own and really like give my best shot to this popcorn company. And I was scared out of my mind. I'm like, I don't know that I can do this. I've always had a job. I love the balance of like, getting paid twice a month and then having this popcorn, it was just, it's easier. And because my husband is an entrepreneur, he was just really able to like speak life into all of my areas of doubt and remind me that like, if it doesn't work out, you can always get a job again. Like, it's not the end of the world, right? Like, I'm so like finite when it comes to things like, if I do this, this will happen. He was a great reminder that like, that's not how it goes. And I've also watching him as an entrepreneur, it kind of prepared me for like the ebbs and flows because I've seen his business. Sometimes it's popping, sometimes it's not. So that gives me perspective that like your business can still be successful and not always be doing this. Like, you actually don't want this. This leads to burnout if this is what your business is like all the time. You need some of this because it allows for like rest and recovery, strategizing, and then going back up again. So I got to see that through him. And then he's really big on systems. So I'm not really a systems girl, but because of him, I like utilize like systems and tools to help me organize my day, structure my business. And it takes like a lot of the guesswork out of my life. And without like, he put me on Notion. I use Notion to organize like all of my business and personal life and activities and orders. And it is like the best thing for me. If I didn't have that, people probably wouldn't get their popcorn on time. I probably would have missed today with you. Like, it's just literally my whole entire life in a system. So yeah, being married to an entrepreneur who is ambitious but intentional, like definitely rubs off on me and just gives me perspective that like, we can really do this thing. Like, we can live lives that are fruitful, intentional, and that you can do what you actually like to do and still make money.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, for the longest time, I thought that was just like a thing that maybe other people could do, but I never saw how that could be actualized in my life. And being married to him and having him like kind of push me to say like, you can actually do this, Major. Like, trust me, I've seen you work. You can do this. It's what gave me like that extra little I needed to like make that hard call during a time where like the normal person would say, don't quit your job. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
I did it anyway. And now looking on the other side of it, he'll come home often and be like, look at you just living the dream, and every day it still has its challenges, but like my life is just so much better for it. So it definitely helps having someone like him. But I always advocate for people. That'd probably be the fourth thing that I would add for one thing that I've learned is you have to have a good community around you. Like, you just need people around you that see maybe where you're trying to go or believe in what you're trying to do, who can advocate for you and tell you like, keep going even when it's really hard, or who can put you on to opportunities. Like, I love telling, hey, you should interview this person, or pitching people for opportunities, even when they're not my client. Like, I just want to see people win. Yeah. So if you have people around you that kind of feel the same way, like my husband always says, like, if we really got together as a community in like a lot of different areas, we could be like really unstoppable, because this is the land. Orlando is a land of opportunity. Like, you can have a one small business one day, and the next day, or 3 months from now, you've got a line wrapped around like Eastern Market for whatever it is that you sell, right? Like, people can really take off much more easily than they can in other cities. So, just finding those people that you can like be vulnerable with and do life with as a business owner. I wouldn't be anywhere that I wouldn't be where I am today without the people in my life, because they've just made it so much better. It's not as hard when you've got people around you.
I absolutely love hearing you say that. I think I'm a huge advocate for the cheerleader and being that aspect. I think it's so important. And I totally agree on the aspect of having when you're solo and not having someone that kind of at least provides that extra level of advocacy and kind of support. It definitely makes it a lot tougher when you're going through the process. So I definitely
Yeah.
I totally get that. To one little thing out of curiosity, since we were talking about Fuego, do you by any chance also follow the 3 o'clock 5 minutes meditation? Do you try to do that, or is that just a him thing? Funny because I see it and then I'm like, yeah, I'm working right now. I'm like, I'm in the middle of I'm almost done with the day, but I
See, but
have
that's
done
what
it
I
a few
mean by
times.
like processes and systems. Like this is like his thing. That's
Yeah.
not me. Like for me, I am I'm much better in the morning time. So I've like created some systems for when I wake up. Like I have things that I do every morning now when I get up that just kind of like get my mind like centered and then ready for the day.
Mm-hmm.
At 3 o'clock, I could be anywhere. I could be like headed to the gym, leaving a client meeting, rushing to get on like a Zoom call with you. I mean, it could literally
Yeah.
be anything. So, but he structures his day around that. So yeah, it's not really my thing. Like sitting there for 5 minutes, I would be like, okay, did I do the laundry? Oh, I have to get that order out.
Oh
Oh, I
yeah.
need to post that on social media. Like that's not
Mm-hmm.
that's not
Oh, I
my
get it. I get it. I've tried
yeah,
it many times and my brain goes exactly the way you go, Major. I'm like, oh
right,
wait, is it 5 minutes yet? Cause what about this idea? And then it's
right.
like, and I get it, but it's, yeah. So it's kind of, I was kind of curious if you did. Um,
No.
how do you balance it though? Like and you mentioned that like I was like, during this time, especially the last few years, realizing rest and all that stuff, like how do you
Yeah.
balance, especially in your world now, because you got to be able to turn off the switch sometimes, and then like
Mhm.
when do you find that ebb and flow of being able to do that?
Yeah. So I take a day of rest every week now. It's very important to me. And sometimes the days change. Like this past weekend, it was Saturday that I rested. I'm not working. I'm still doing things, right? But I'm not using my brain power to do my
Yep.
normal things that generate money for me or that are part of my day-to-day work. So I'm not always faithful at it, but I try to take at least one day of rest. Sometimes it's active rest, but it's definitely rest. And I've realized it's funny because everybody, I don't know, do you follow the Enneagram?
Yes.
Okay, what are you?
um
You
oh,
know?
I can't remember off the top of my head. Now I gotta check.
It's okay. Well, I'm a 3, so we're
Okay.
natural like achievers, which means that like, I mean, at our best, we are like full of life. We're energized. We're working in our purpose. We enjoy the work that we do. At our worst, our work defines who we are. Right. So if I'm not selling popcorn and selling a lot of popcorn, that's a reflection on me, not just the business, but me as an individual. So it's a very like, we can be very hard on ourselves. And that's the posture that I've taken probably my entire life. And leaving my job, my PR, like regular job that I had, really helped me like reassess how I identify myself as an individual. So today, I've kind of broken up some of my 3 ways instead of so closely identifying who I am to what I do. I've been really passionate about finding out who is Major outside of what I do for people and for the world.
Yeah.
So Major is just a person who really likes to work out. I like to eat food and talk about food. I love to connect people. I love to spend time with my family. I love to chill with my husband. Like these are things that have nothing to do with what I produce for the world, but everything about just who I am as a person. So
Okay.
I spend a lot of time doing that. And in doing that, I find myself doing less busy work. And when I do work, it's much more productive. And I resist the urge to always feel like I have to be working. So to give you just a little bit behind the curtain of my life, on the PR side, I'm very intentional about the businesses I work with. So my client list is very small, but it's very intentional. Like I don't work with everybody and their mom because all of us don't line up as far as like our values and what we do.
Yeah.
So because my client list is smaller, I realize I really don't have to work every hour of the day, which is very weird for me. Like when you work for a company, you got to clock your hours, they hire you for a certain amount of time and then you
Yep.
typically well above that. Well, for me, I don't have to do that. So I have to resist the urge to always be on. And sometimes that means I just have time to take a nap, or I have time to go for a walk or go grocery shopping or stop by the studio and see my husband. And that's like that balance of rest and work and how they can work in harmony. Now,
Yeah.
I'm a full-time entrepreneur, so it's going to look different for somebody who works, a regular like 9 to 5 or 8 to 6, whatever job. But what it really boils down to is just really defining who I am outside of my work, which is what I always advocate for people to do. And then really leaning into whatever those things are that make you who you are. Because if they're not work related, then you just get to enjoy being who you are and not feeling so like attached to the accomplishments of a job or a career, which they're rarely ever in our control, right? Some things are just beyond what we can do. We never saw 2020 coming. So if you were so bogged down into seeing success from your job and then your business closed down in 2020, who are you now? So I'm doing that hard work every day. And sometimes it just looks like, Major, just go take a nap. And I do it. And it's great. So
well, I think I think that's awesome. That's something definitely to strive for. I think it's I absolutely love that. What advice, you've given some amazing tips and lessons, but I'm just kind of curious because I always ask this question, so I figure I'm going to keep with it. What advice would you give someone looking to start? Obviously, you've given some amazing lessons, but like if you were to tell someone, if someone were to say, "Hey, Major, I want to start something," what's the first thing you tell them besides a thermal printer?
Oh yeah, besides thermal printer. So I've kind of gone over some of what I always advocate for and recommend, but I'll reiterate because I think it's important. Repetition is awesome. First thing is, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You need to figure out your why. Like, why is this important? And sometimes it has, business people, they tell you like, find out what the people need and you'll always make money, all that stuff. It's like, no, like, why are you doing this? Is it because you love soap making or you really love connecting people over coffee, or you love throwing dinner parties, or whatever it is, right? Why are you doing this? Figure that out. 2, then you need that conviction. Like you need to anchor yourself into something about what you do that will keep you going, because it will get really, really hard. You will go through seasons where you won't make any money or any sales and feel like my whole business is going down the drain. And then you will equally go through seasons where there's so much success that you can crumble under that pressure. So if you figure out why you're doing what you're doing, it can kind of like help anchor you. And it's like that, like that North Star that reminds you like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. So I can, it's hard, but I can keep going. Then you need a community. You need people that can just like hold you down. Like I've had friends that, when I felt like the orders that were just coming in were just kind of like pressing me back, but they were literally like behind me, like picking me back up and saying, hey, what do you need me for? I can put on labels for you. I can help you go to the post office. I can just chill with you and bring you coffee. Like, what do you need? So I call that my we. Like you need like your community that can like really advocate for you and check you when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, hold you accountable, love on you. What's one other thing to get started? I think you just need to, it just has to be fun. Life is too short, like I've just learned that like life is really, really short, and you got to find some sort of enjoyment in what you do. Like, even if it looks different than like the enjoyment for other people. So let's say you want to start an e-commerce business, right? Like something on Amazon. I mean, if you're not really running it, or even if you are, it's probably not really fun, right? Yeah. But what can you find that makes it enjoyable for you? Is it like what you're going to be able to do with the funds once you get them that makes it fun? Like, find some sort of joy in what you do, because so much of life is like laborious and stressful. But if you're starting something new, especially today, I think gone are the days of like just doing something because if you're starting something new, just because you just have to. Like if you got to make ends meet, I'm always like, sometimes you just got to you got to get it done. But if you're doing this because you actually want it to be like sustaining and fulfilling to you, you got to find some sort of joy in it. And once you do that, like, even when it's hard, there's nothing like, even when I'm like dog tired, when I go to an event or when I get an email from a snacker and they're like, oh my gosh, I had your popcorn. It was the best thing I've ever had. Or how is it still crunchy? Does it taste fresh like you just made it? Like those things just literally just make my heart just flutter like 1,000 times over. And it just reminds me of like, this is actually really cool. I get to make popcorn. Like,
Yeah.
that's really cool, you know? So doing those, I think 4 things I think are really helpful, and they'll give you purpose, connection, community, and joy. And you need those things because starting anything is just hard, right? Keeping going, keeping at something, even like going for walks every day is hard for people, right? Eating healthy. So starting a whole
Consistency.
business or something is like, oh my gosh, this is like intense. So you need to have at least some of those 4 things or all of them, in my personal opinion, to maybe see it through and then enjoy it. And even when it's all said and done, maybe years down the line, you don't regret why you did it. You're like, that was good for that season. I don't do that anymore, but man, when I did it, it was fun. You know, I enjoyed it. It was crazy, but I learned so much from it. So yeah, those 4 things I think would be great.
That's just as good as your ingredients in your popcorn. Those are some great tips. Where can people find you, follow you, shop for your product?
Absolutely. So you can always find us. We're open 24/7 on eatprojectpop.com. Say that again, eatprojectpop.com. There you can order on the website and we can ship to you anywhere in the country. And then you can also click the local pickup option if you are in Central Florida. And our only pickup location is at Good Crowd Shop in College Park. So you can literally just click that option, place the order for whatever you like. You can do candles, totes, popcorn, whatever you see on the website, let me know. And then typically within like a couple of days, it'll be available, or same day, depending on my schedule, at Good Crowd Shop. And then oftentimes we do pop-ups at Good Crowd, Easton Market, different places around town. So follow us on Eat Project Pop on all social channels, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We normally post about where we're going to pop up so that you can come see us and sample popcorn if you want to try it first, and then get a couple bags.
Yeah, she's a good snack dealer. She lets you sample first, and then you get addicted, and then you need to buy. So, I definitely I love that, and I do love, by the way, the fact that you do the local pickup location. I think it's great, and you're right. Sarah from Good Crowd is amazing. You can actually hear her story as well because she's been a past guest, so you can hear her story as well, which is amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know we've kind of had some issues trying to connect because of obviously busy schedules, but I really wanted people, I was so intrigued. I've always been intrigued by you and your story and your success and all your hard work. And I just really wanted to basically I thought you'd be a great resource to kind of have people be able to listen to your story, learn more about you. And I just thought you'd be a great guest. So I really appreciate you coming on and having lunch with me today.
I really appreciate that. I always tell people, if you ask me questions, like I can go deep. So if anybody has additional questions or they're curious about anything that I shared, I always tell people you can hit me up on Instagram. My personal account is Major Creates. So if you're like, hey, I have questions about something, you can hit me up there or on Eat Project Pop. I always love to connect. And of course, find myself a part of everybody's little community if I can be. So feel free to reach out to me. And thank you so much for having me. I'm always so honored and grateful. Anytime anybody says, I want to talk to Major and hear her blast for an hour about anything. So
heck yeah.
Thank you so much. I never take anything for granted. So and it's always so crucial for me to connect with people that I know locally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's so easy to be thinking about all the other things you could be doing, but these type of interactions just allow me to just share and connect. And it's my favorite thing to do. So thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for Major for being on and having lunch with me. Definitely make sure to check them out online, eatprojectpop.com. And if you enjoyed the show, definitely make sure to subscribe, share it, spread the word, definitely follow, do some shopping online. And then obviously I'd love to know if you did do some popcorn and what your thoughts on the popcorn is, as well as either candles, totes, variety of different things. If you want to support me, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. Go ahead and do some shopping. By all means, definitely give me a sandwich selfie here and there. But thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thank you so much, everyone.